Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, February 22nd. A lot to talk about this morning. First of all, there is a major winter storm that will impact a large part of the nation from California to the Rocky Mountain states, the northern plains, the upper Midwest, northern New England. All those areas will receive substantial snowfall over the next few days. Those are already hard-hit areas that have featured a lot of snow so far this winter season, and again a lot of snow in these places over the next few days with this current major winter storm. We'll also take a look ahead at the very likely development of a high-latitude blocking upper air pattern over North America that will feature higher heights than normal, higher pressures than normal over places like Greenland, Iceland, northeastern Canada, and that could have big impacts on the weather across the eastern U.S. as we go from February into March. We'll take a look also at a couple of teleconnection indices, the NAO and AR, that are giving us a signal that this high-latitude blocking pattern will indeed develop by the time we get into the month of March. Let's start off with the current situation. This is the weather warnings map from NOAA across the nation. And again, substantial snow from the west coast here all the way into the Rocky Mountain states, the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and ultimately into the northern part of New England. These are same areas that have been hit very hard over the past several weeks. The Sierra Nevada, anywhere from 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 feet of snow from this particular storm. It's especially cold across Northern California. They may even see some snow in the San Francisco Bay Area later tonight into the day on Thursday. Certainly Oakland, for example, could see some snow showers, maybe mixed with rain showers with this particular system, and then accumulating snow across much of the Rocky Mountain states, downright blizzard conditions across parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota area, and heavy snow will then continue to the east across Wisconsin, Michigan, and into the northern part of New England. Meanwhile, in this storm's warm sector, there will be a surge of warmth on Thursday into the southern part of the Mid-Atlantic region, with places like Washington, D.C. possibly reaching 75 to 80 degrees on Thursday afternoon. Well, let's continue the theme here of looking at the near-term major winter storm, and then we'll look ahead to the possibility of that high-latitude blocking pattern. This is just the 850 millibar temperature anomaly pattern from last night's zero-Z run of the Canadian model. I just wanted to show this as we begin the discussion of this major winter storm. Look at the dichotomy in temperatures here at the 850 millibar level. This is extremely cold air across much of the interior northwestern part of the nation, much colder than normal all the way into California. Meanwhile, in the warm sector of this developing storm, very, very mild air. And again, this will surge to the north and east by tomorrow into the Mid-Atlantic region, at least the southern part of the Mid-Atlantic region. Again, maybe 75 to 80 degrees D.C., maybe 70 in Philly. Probably New York City hangs in the cooler air, probably doing no better than 50 to 55 degrees, so there could be quite a temperature contrast tomorrow afternoon from D.C. to New York City. 75 to 80, 50 to 55 across this part of the nation. But again, just look at this temperature contrast right now. That is certainly adding fuel to the fire for this major winter storm. Well, before we take a look at the surface forecast from the zero-Z Canadian model run, this is the snowfall prediction from this model run for the next 5 days. And again, these same areas that have been hit hard with substantial snow so far this winter season will be hit hard over the next few days. First of all, the Sierra Nevada out in this part of eastern California, 1, 2, maybe even 3 or 4 feet of snow from this system, and maybe some snow all the way down into coastal areas of northern California. San Francisco, Oakland certainly can see some snowflakes as an example. A lot of the Rocky Mountain states, those ski resorts, will get substantial snow over the next couple of days with this system. Blizzard conditions across the Dakotas, Minnesota. Heavy snow goes into Wisconsin and Michigan, ultimately into the upstate of New York and northern New England. Again, this is the total snowfall map for the next 5 days. Meanwhile, DC, Philadelphia, New York City, little if any in the way of frozen precipitation, as has been the rule over the last couple of months. Let's walk through the operational run of the Canadian model from 0Z, looking at the surface forecast maps. This is beginning today here on Wednesday, February 22nd. Low pressure starting to really intensify over the Rocky Mountain states. Still some snow back in California and even along the coastal sections of northwestern California. Snow is really starting to spread eastward into the northern plains, the upper part of the Midwest. Temperatures are very, very cold, as we saw a moment ago. Those 850 millibar temperatures way, way below normal for this time of the year. Kind of a warm front starting to develop off to the east of this system, extending all the way into the eastern third of the nation. Now let's move forward. That warm front, first of all, in the Mid-Atlantic region can cause a cold rain in, let's say, southeastern PA, northern Maryland, maybe some sleet across south central Pennsylvania, even some snow across upstate Pennsylvania. And here we are, the intensification of low pressure over the Rocky Mountain states, and very, very cold there. We're talking near 10 degrees in parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota right now, with 40, 50 mile per hour winds on the way, and that heavy snowfall. Let's continue to move forward here. On Thursday, we will see a surge of mild air, warm air, unusually warm air for this time of the year into the southern half of the Mid-Atlantic region. Very likely to be some records set on Thursday afternoon. Again, perhaps a flirtation with the 80-degree mark in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, a blizzard will be raging across the northern plains, across Minnesota, Wisconsin, upper part of Michigan. Move forward in time, and that colder air then moves into the Mid-Atlantic region by the time we get to the end of the work week, Friday into Saturday. Somewhat modified form of that cold air mass, certainly modified compared to what they will experience out across the northern plains. All backed up by a very strong Canadian high pressure system that moves into the Dakotas by Friday. It's a 1046 millibar high, and north winds will push in much colder air on Friday as compared to Thursday in the Mid-Atlantic region and throughout the northeastern states. Then we move into the upcoming weekend, and there'll be a weak low pressure area in the east that could cause some snow showers in the Mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S., maybe some rain showers to the south of there. This is the midday Saturday forecast map. There will be a cold air mass in place. It would indeed likely snow, especially north of the Mason-Dixon line on Saturday if anything falls, but it appears this low pressure area will certainly be limited in its moisture content. Well, let's now take a look ahead. First of all, starting off by looking at some teleconnection indices that we often monitor here at arcfieldweather.com. This is the North Atlantic Oscillation. Then we'll look at its closely related cousin, the Arctic Oscillation. As we get into the month of March, one of the features that usually are developed across North America is kind of a shorter and shorter wavelength between the upper level ridges and the upper level troughs, and we get more and more numerous upper level highs and upper level lows, and they often develop into what we call a blocking pattern, where they can sit for several days at a time. If you happen to be under the location of a high pressure ridge, you could have warm, dry weather pattern for several days. If you happen to be under a deep upper level trough, you could have cold, stormy weather for several days. Again, a lot of these blocking patterns really intensify during the spring months of March going into April. And the NAO is dropping into negative territory. That's what we see here in the red. This is the forecast for the North Atlantic Oscillation. And we'll see in a moment the AO is also showing signs of going into negative territory. And the combination of the two give us a signal that high latitude blocking, higher heights to normal, higher pressures than normal will develop over the next couple of weeks. Places like Greenland, Iceland, northeastern Canada, and that is certainly more favorable for sending cold air down into the northeastern part of the nation, perhaps even into the Mid-Atlantic region from the eastern part of Canada. So again, this is a teleconnection index that is predicting quite a change in the upper part of the atmosphere. You can see the last several weeks, really going back all the way to December, the NAO has been in positive territory. So this indeed would be a significant change to the overall upper air pattern. And here's the forecast in red of the Arctic oscillation. It is in positive territory right now, has been for the past several weeks, but it looks like it takes a dive over the next couple of weeks as we go through the first couple of weeks of March, perhaps even into negative territory. So again, the combination of this and the NAO really give us a signal that this high latitude blocking is likely to develop over the next couple of weeks in the Greenland, northeastern part of Canada, that particular region of North America. Well, let's wrap up now by looking ahead, looking at the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps from last night ensemble run of the European model. This is the 0Z ensemble version of the European model. First of all, we're starting off, excuse me, these are 5-day rolling averages. This is the current 5-day period, and we've had this high pressure here over the southeastern U.S. in the upper part of the atmosphere for the past several weeks. That has contributed to a very warm January and February in Florida and the rest of the southeast U.S. and even in the mid-Atlantic region. Not only warmer than normal, but very little snow to speak of in that D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Notice over Greenland right here, some blue, some below normal heights here, but we'll see what happens here as we progress through the next couple of weeks. Again, this is a rolling 5-day mean of the 500 millibar height anomalies. Let's go now forward in time, and again, focus in on this area right here, Greenland, Iceland, and look at what happens here by the time we get all the way out to days 9 to 13, and here we are, days 10 to 14. This is into the early part of March, March 3rd to March 8th. The month of March begins later next week. Look at all this higher heights to normal here. This is your high latitude blocking pattern. By the way, the southeastern U.S. ridge tends to weaken, tends to be pushed a little bit to the south, and this kind of a trophy pattern here over the Atlantic, over the western U.S. could really team up together and basically have this development of the high latitude blocking over Greenland, northeastern Canada, and you can have a jet kind of underneath it, keeping it a very active pattern across the nation right here. Don't be surprised if this kind of teams up together. Let's go out a little bit farther in time here, all the way out to days 11 to 15. This is March 4th to March 9th, and here is your high latitude blocking set up at this particular time over this part of North America. Right here, here's your high latitude blocking, and it will certainly help to send some colder air down into the New England area and perhaps all the way down into the Mid-Atlantic region as we get into the next week and the week after. Meanwhile, we still have this high pressure ridging over the southeastern U.S. It will not go away completely, but it may be give up a little bit of its ground and kind of be squashed a little bit to the south and weaken a little bit. So we'll see what kind of ramifications this high latitude blocking pattern will have in the eastern U.S. And again, we'll watch for the possible trophiness to develop not only over the Atlantic Ocean and the western part of the U.S., but perhaps into the eastern U.S. as well, with that jet streak kind of being forced underneath that block over Greenland. And this could be an active and potentially a colder pattern for the northeastern quadrant of the nation. So a lot going on. A major winter storm impacts a large part of the northern U.S. over the next few days, all the way from California to the Rocky Mountain states, the northern plains, upper Midwest, and ultimately into upstate New York and northern New England. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.